A lot of goals, a lot of penalty minutes, a lot of fun.
It
out
was
of
great.
Buffalo and Tampa with one of the games of the year, which kind of overshadowed Colorado and Minnesota in a great weekend of hockey. It's 100% hockey with Millard and Shannon. That was old school between Tampa and Buffalo. It feels like anybody that wants to push the Lightning, they'll just come at you and try to beat you in the alley as much as they do on the ice.
So here's the deal. We got to give the schedule maker a lot of credit. We do. You know, that yesterday was a day of great matchups, you know, whether we fluked into them or not. And then on top of that, the games backed up the matchups. You know, we talk about 8-7 Buffalo Tampa with 102 penalty minutes. Unbelievable. The Colorado Minnesota game, spectacular. Did you see what Pittsburgh did being down 3-0 and came back to win 5-4? A huge win for Pittsburgh with no Malkin and no Crosby, and then you know there was the game that you were part of last night. Vegas Edmonton, which was, you know, when we were doing the pregame show last night, Daren, we talked about is the victor the ones that find the spark, and is the loser one that's in deeper trouble? I'm not necessarily sure about that, but it was one of those make a statement games for both of those teams.
What I loved was both coaches in the Buffalo Tampa game leaned into the theatrics of the performance.
Well, John Cooper always would. I mean, we know John well enough that he would enjoy that. What's really come to light for me, and it's in the last two or 3 months, is how much Lindy has embraced all of this, and what's going on in Buffalo. Lindy's become one of the great salesmen for hockey in Buffalo, and last night was no different. When he talked about after the game, there's nothing like seeing guys come into the dressing room after with a bump and a bruise and a smile. And how important it is, and the learning curve that these guys are having to go through to win. And Buffalo's back. Buffalo is a hockey town again. Always was, but now the place is full and it's rocking, and the team is responding.
8-7, and both goalies that start finish. And it doesn't go to extra time either. Like, there is so much good stuff there. The penalty box is full. Like, it had a bit of everything.
It was
including Buffalo in technically in first place. Point totals.
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll probably get a disagreement with that with Lawton, but the fact is that the Buffalo Sabres have more points right now than the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have played 2 more games, but the Buffalo Sabres are in first place. And you know what? Let's enjoy it.
Lean into it for a bit. You mentioned Lawton. He's coming up next. A man that's seen the National Hockey League from every different angle and can offer an opinion from a variety of different spots and viewpoints. It's Daren Millard and John Shannon on 100% Hockey. Stay with us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Give us a thumbs up.
NHL TV is now on DAZN. Hockey lives here.
Here we go.
Watch every game from every team. The best players in the world. And the coldest plays on ice. Watch up to 4 games at once for the ultimate NHL experience. Sign up now at DAZN.
Back with a man with 100 titles on 100% Hockey. Here's Brian Lawton with John Shannon and Daren Millard. Hey, was the trade deadline underwhelming for you, or was it more work for teams to make trades, which made you appreciate it more?
Definitely not underwhelming. Shocking would be more of the word that I would suggest. If you came into that deadline, and there weren't a lot of them, they were in the minority. But if you were a seller, it was a bonanza. If you look at players like earlier in the year, maybe that you thought were available, I felt like they could have been had a lot cheaper. And then you get to the deadline, and a few people, are really ramping up that they want to change their teams. I felt like the market exploded for sellers. It was phenomenal. I can't understand, it depends on what your long-term philosophy is, but a team like Toronto that nobody was really sure what direction they were going in should have sold every player they could other than those players that are in the superstar category. Now, there's a lot to go on there and unpack because of their protected or unprotected pick, however you look at it at this stage. But I just thought it was fascinating. You don't see a market that explodes this much maybe once in every 10 years in terms of the returns you can get for players. The returns were just so strong for anybody that was maybe thinking about taking one step back to move two steps forward. And I felt like a lot of players still could have moved, and the teams that were selling just didn't realize that. This was a very abnormal trade deadline, and one that could have been really fruitful, in my opinion, for a lot more people.
I mean, if not for the Central Division, Brian, I'm not sure there'd be a trade deadline. Let's be honest. I mean, Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota made at least 6 of the moves, at least, and they're only doing it to combat each other.
True. I mean, other people were trying. The prices were high. We certainly know that, St. Louis was active. I think Vegas was trying to do a lot of things. Calgary as a seller was active. Like you had this Carolina, who operates not different from all the clubs, but from most of the clubs, who appears to have a really good team. I happened to have an opportunity to spend a few minutes with Tom Dundon in the last month or so. And, they're just a very disciplined team. I could argue that that's really smart business. I could argue that that's that last piece why they don't get over the hump. They're going to take another kick at the can this year, as they have an excellent team that's very well run. But that's the one piece that you certainly could have a debate on. Are they not willing to go that last step? It was a terrible market. I just said it for buyers. When I say it's a positive market for sellers, it's obviously a terrible market for buyers. Carolina didn't do anything. I heard their coach voice that. But that's not the way they conduct business. So it's yet to be determined if that's a great move or the wrong move. But it's definitely a statement, in my opinion.
You talk about the way that they do business. They have been really aggressive the last 2 deadlines. Jake Gensel, and then in the end, the Rantanen escapade. Do you think they changed their philosophy?
No, I think they stuck to it. I think in the past they were really aggressive. I just like that they operate independently. They're not so much in the flow. In the past, they felt like it warranted being really aggressive. They could make deals. The Rantanen deal was, flipping a player that, my opinion would be their long-term analysis, because you knew what was going to happen with Nick Cash, or however you want to say Martin's name. Natchez, right? It did change when I was in it, NHL Network, just for the record, a couple of times there, like a few other players. But okay, Natchez. You have to try to conceive deeper as to what might have been happening. In my opinion, that was a deal about a chance to upgrade, in their opinion, not make a decision down the road that we want to pay this player it was already baked in what Natchez was going to get. So they traded it for another player who ultimately, got a pretty good contract, I'd say, for what he values. So you have all this depth of what's going on. In that particular case, they had a real specific plan, and we all saw it unfold. We're going to trade for this guy, try to re-sign him. If we can't, we're going to move him out, and we'll take the next return. That was not risk adverse, in my opinion. But overall, I feel like they operate where they make a decision and they stick to it. They didn't like the prices, is my final conclusion. Nobody from Carolina's told me that. I did see Eric Tulsky speaking about it, and they made a decision to stay pat. Again, how I started this, is that a good decision or a bad decision? We'll see how that plays out this year in the playoffs.
Restraint, though, is unusual on trade deadline day when all the fish get frying. Did that impress you a little bit?
In some ways, I'm impressed. And I'll be honest, in other ways, I felt like, and you never know what the conversations were like, but I felt like there were some third-line centers that moved. There wasn't that many second-line centers that moved, but that really was the piece, in my opinion, that they're missing there. And who could that have been? Could have been the guy Colorado got. Do we know that was an option? I have no idea. But when I looked at their team, I know they wanted to add some toughness. I could see that. They can be a pretty quiet team at times when push comes to shove in the playoffs. And you can only imagine, certainly as they've, as you see opponents that you typically would see, I'll just use Florida as an example, they have a lot of pushback. Carolina does not match that intensity, but maybe Carolina has the better team, and maybe that's the difference in the playoffs.
Nick Delorier might make a difference a little bit there, the way he plays the game, the guy they got from Philadelphia.
Very, very economical. I would have suggested that other options could have been Evander Kane. He didn't go anywhere. So, in my opinion, that's where I look and I say, Vancouver, what are you doing? Unload those guys, get a deal done. I feel like something should have been done there, particularly with Evander Kane, unless they're going to re-sign him, which I find that not that high a probability. So, there's a stubbornness in being a GM where you don't want to trade a player ever because you didn't get your price. And Brian Burke really coined this because Berkey would openly discuss it. And all GMs, everybody's so well read and there's so much knowledge by the GMs now. Some guys, they subscribe to that theory. If you don't get what you want, don't trade them. And at this deadline, not getting maybe what matched up to everything else in the market was still a pretty damn good return. And it should have been done. Even teams like Toronto. If you could have got anything near the type of prices that were out there for where you're at, just because maybe it didn't match up to another deal, this was the year to pull the trigger anyhow.
What's your feeling on Toronto now that the dust has settled?
My feeling on Toronto, there's still a lot of work to be done. And my honest feeling is if management above hockey operations should know what they're going to do now. And because if you understand the job, you recognize your job isn't done when we get to trade deadline. A lot of people say, now the trade deadline's over. I think a lot of teams make a mistake in this. They wait. They don't really like if you know you're going to make a change, it should happen now. If you know you're not, that's fine. That's the way I view it. But often I think about this and I look at it, and teams end up making a change, but they waited and burned a few months. People they may want aren't available because they're working for other teams, etc. So I'm fascinated by that one to see how it plays out. If Brad is going to stay, then that's fine. I think that they should make that decision and tell him. But you shouldn't leave a guy in there. There's still work to be done. It's not over just because the trade deadline's over. You're always working on your team. There are very few light moments when you're a GM now, and yet I feel like at the deadline, people make decisions, but they often don't tell people till after the season because it's convenient. Who cares about convenience? What's best for your organization is my point.
That's why I found it not humorous, but I found it interesting that there were a lot of 2028 picks, 2027 picks given out. And I actually wondered if the manager was going to be around to exercise those picks.
Yeah, obviously you want to be more factual based, but no matter what, when you're doing deals with teams, you're always looking at what is the pressure on the manager. What is that meter at? Is it really high? Is it really low? Do you know the guy's going to be there forever and he's not going to, be susceptible to that pressure? Or do you know that maybe there's a chance they won't be back and they need to do something? So do you push harder? There's just a lot more to it than the straight analysis of what the player is worth. You have to go deeper than that.
Anaheim and Montreal, I see as similar organizations in their path right now. One was really aggressive and one stood firm. How do you analyze the two different approaches?
For me, I thought it was a terrific move, to be honest with you, for Anaheim to get John Carlson, even though that's an incredibly high price to pay for a guy at his age. He is having a good year. He was injured, obviously, right before the break and hasn't started playing yet, but he will, and he could be a difference maker for him. It's a swing by Anaheim. It's a calculated risk. I do think it's what they needed. So I'm okay with it. At the same time, Montreal stayed pat. I thought they might make a change or two. I thought maybe a guy like Jordan Binnington could have ended up there. They decided not to do that. So it's the pressure on the manager and it's the thoughts of ownership that generally can flip that in the end. And then the last quotation to that would be like Carolina. Maybe Montreal just made a decision that these prices are so high. We're doing a terrific job because Jeff Gordon and his staff has done a terrific job. And Kent Hughes, of course, as a general manager, has done a terrific job in bringing that franchise back to a really good spot and the future's really bright. So maybe they determined, maybe they'd had meetings somewhere during the year, prior to the year, that let's make the playoffs this year. It's not likely that you'll go on a run, but it's certainly possible. Let's continue to be patient like they have, and we'll follow that playbook. Anaheim, on the other hand, I think Anaheim's somewhat different. And this is another quotation you have to look at because the fortunes of the ownership have been so great. And I'm not talking about hockey, just in their own private businesses outside of hockey, that I feel like Anaheim, if people haven't realized, is a much more aggressive team in every aspect of their management. What does that mean? It's kind of a nice way of saying that they're spending a lot more money, in my opinion, from a distance to upgrade their hockey team. Whereas it's not that they weren't spending a lot of money before, but I would have considered them more of a small market team that was very conservative. And I have a lot of points of evidence as to what this change would look like, whether it's player development, staff, etc. So I commend Anaheim. I think they're doing a fantastic job. I think their owners are in a position to have more fun, to get more enjoyment out of that franchise than ever before.
So when you say they're spending money on hockey operations outside of the cap?
Yes, they're reinvesting in themselves. I track every organization. They're reinvesting in themselves at levels that I don't believe they've seen in the past. I'll be honest. It's just my opinion, but I feel strongly on that. I've been very impressed, I'll be honest with you, with the things they're investing in. Things that a lot of times an individual team that maybe we label as small market, because there are no more small market teams in the sense that we used to think about it. Otherwise, we would have no idea what happened in Edmonton, because they're a small market team. How did they explode in their prosperity? Well, they got a couple of superstars. They made it to the finals. They've proven that they can generate revenue at unthinkable levels, and they've exploded. Could Anaheim do that next? Yeah, I think they could. They're certainly investing in their team. I don't want to be cryptic about it. I mean, Broadcom has done incredible. It's the main driver of the family's wealth. You have to be well read on everything that's going on. It's not just hockey. It's a very economic deal in today's world to manage a club.
Plus, Anaheim, and people who haven't been to Anaheim, the Samueli family are investing in the area too, correct? The village is something special.
100%. And one thing about California, there's a billionaire behind every tree in California, it seems like. So at the end of the day, I'd have to imagine that a team like that in that state would get a lot of interest from people constantly. Would you ever sell your club? I don't know that to be a fact, but it's a pretty strong theory I have about Anaheim.
Take a break. We'll come back with Brian Lawton on 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon. Stay with us.
Car shopping should be exciting, not exhausting. That's where Car Gurus comes in. They have advanced search tools, unbiased deal ratings, and price history, so you know a great deal when you see one. It's no wonder that Car Gurus is the #1 rated car shopping app in Canada. When you're car shopping on your phone, it shouldn't be a maze. You need to see all the information. With the Car Gurus app, you can. Powerful search tools that you see deal ratings, price history, and dealer reviews on listings all in one place. And you can turn on real-time price drop alerts so you never miss a great deal. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent, hassle-free buying process. Buy your next car today at cargurus.ca. Make sure your deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.ca. cargurus.ca.
So on the heels of the trade deadline, is anybody significantly better than the field, or was it just status quo? Did Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota just up their percentages by the same amount as they were before the deadline?
I think it's unquestionable that Colorado and Minnesota are significantly better. I really do. I'll include Quinn Hughes in that, but just the work they've done, they've really upgraded their team. I think Dallas attempted to. I'm not sure they did as much. I mean, Colorado blew the lights out. Look at the season they're having already. And they add consistent known quantities in Kadri and Roy. I mean, those are game changers after taking a big swing at bringing in Brock Nelson, who most of us always thought Brock's a really nice player, got a lot of offense, probably better suited as a 3C. Not the case. His game has exploded, which is unusual. Colorado paid what was considered a hefty amount for him. They have got 150% value out of that signing. When I add it all up, the season they were having, then the changes they made, it's really impressive. And I thought that Minnesota was coming like a freight train because they've done the same thing. Billy Guerin's done an amazing job, just like Chris McFarland. It's like punch, counter punch, in my opinion. And if you watched the game yesterday, that was the best hockey game I've seen in the National Hockey League this year, by far. That was literally the most well-played game by both teams. And rightfully so, it ended in overtime. But that was a really, really next-level game. And I think there's some teams, those teams in particular, have pushed themselves to the forefront.
So with all the firepower that Colorado has and the changes they made, they still can't score in the power play. Their power play is anemic.
Yeah, and that's probably why they threw Kadri right on that first unit yesterday.
Yeah.
Trying to see if they can recreate some of the magic. They have all the pieces. This happens in the game. But it's gone on for a little while there. I think they'll continue to tinker with it, and I'd be shocked if they don't get it going. There's just too much talent there. Sometimes it's as simple as revert back to get pucks to the middle and shoot, and maybe they could use a little bit more grit around the net. Other times it's as simple as just make plays. You guys are all so talented. We don't have to have it so set. So I feel like they could go either way. I feel like we haven't seen the best, particularly since they've made some changes. And I'd be shocked if they don't figure it out from now to the playoffs.
In the Pacific Division, there's some great stories. Anaheim vying for a title, Vegas battling through injury, but still trying to find their rhythm, and then Edmonton drama-filled. What do you make of the Oilers? One, bringing Paul Coffey back, the situation around the goaltending. There's a lot happening around a team that we expected to be pretty drama-free this year.
I think what we saw last night is if they get average to above average goaltending, they're still a top tier club. They've made a lot of changes. Tristan Jarry was probably the biggest one, they've made, in my opinion. They moved out a D who's playing for Colorado now, who scored a goal last night in that game, played very well, and Brett Kulak, who I thought was a pretty good D, so they didn't just swap goalies out. But they lost a guy that they essentially had to kind of turn around and replace him at the deadline in that trade. And Jarry just hasn't played well. He just hasn't. He wasn't in that last night for their win over Vegas, obviously. And that's because Connor Ingram has played, better. Mm-hmm. And that was not the intent, I think, with that move. So give it more time. That needs to turn around, because if they don't get the goaltending, then I don't think right now, with losing Broberg, Holloway, signing some players like Frederick that haven't, he scored a goal yesterday, so that's great news. They need to see a whole bunch more of that from him for the commitment they made to him. So it's right there for Edmonton, and I only say that because they're going to play Vegas a couple more times. They're going to play San Jose. They're going to play Anaheim. They're nowhere near where I would have projected them, and yet it was a pretty big red flag for me that a lot of people were ranking their D as a legitimate D. That's the insulation from goaltending issues, and I did not have that on my bingo card in the summer. I thought that was a miscalculation by the market. That doesn't mean the team miscalculated, but I thought other people did. I thought it could be problematic. If your goalie's not going to be great, you can hide a lot with a really strong D. And those two factors just haven't come together for them. So it's up to that squad to figure it out. It's right in front of them. Last night was a huge win for them, as you know, Daren. They need to get more of that going, more of that good feeling. But the D-core is still an issue, in my opinion, and they've tried to make changes. And their depth is still an issue. Their superstars are not an issue. Those kids are operating at 110% for the club, in my opinion.
One of the last times you were on with us, we ended up talking about Connor McDavid and the amount of times he turns over the puck, and I've never forgotten it, really. The more you touch the puck, the more chances you have of turning the puck over. But it seems to still be occurring a lot, and last night was a great example. First two periods, the puck was on and off his stick and on a Golden Knights stick quickly. And yet when he needed to be aggressive, because he's always aggressive, but when he needed to play, I mean, the play he made on the Draisaitl goal, and even the play he made on the empty net goal, separates him from everybody else.
It does. I'm going to correct you here, and we'll have to go to the tape, and please let me know if I'm right or wrong. But my comments, particularly on that club and players turning over the puck, I believe were directed at Evan Bouchard, because I feel like people overrate when Evan makes a mistake. He's an elite player. He's a superstar player. I thought he should have been on the Canadian Olympic team. He wasn't. I feel like the market penalizes him. In Connor's case, I honestly, let's look at the tape and please let me know.
Okay.
But in my mind, I recall that conversation as Evan Bouchard was taking a lot of water, that he just, he would cost you the game. And that's not the case with Evan Bouchard.
And yet there are fans out there after last night on the Eichel goal, waving their fist at Evan Bouchard. Brian, you know that.
I fully know that. the concept is that you ask these guys to do a very specific job, which is to handle the puck under pressure in really tight situations to try to drive offense. Evan Bouchard does that a hell of a lot more than he turns pucks over. The problem is, in a lot of D over the years and forwards, I don't see this with Connor as much, so that's why I'm trying to make sure I'm clear on that. But with Evan, when he makes mistakes, they tend to be catastrophic looking. A mistake is a mistake, and you cannot let emotion make your decisions for you. If Evan Bouchard makes 10 mistakes for every 4 good things he does, then that's a problem. If Evan Bouchard makes 10 great plays for every 4 mistakes, he's still a net positive for you in a massive way. That's my analysis on Evan. In Connor's case, I don't think I've ever said a negative word about Connor, and I'm not, joking. I just think he's the best player in the world right now, and it's not even close. And if anybody doesn't believe me, go back and watch the Olympics. Mm-hmm. When he got a chance to play against all the other best players in the world in a different format, and he got to play with some of the other best players in the world. And I still couldn't find anybody that I felt was right there, in my opinion, in terms of evaluation of other players. And I'm 99.9% sure I can't find another player in the world in hockey that would say, that's 100% right. He's the best player in the world by a lot, which is very unusual, because in every other sport you'll find somebody say, well, I'm just as good as him. He's not that much better than me. But in Connor's case, I think he's stamped it. I just think about Edmonton and what happens every time they get to overtime.
Oh,
it's like, what is a higher percentage bet than those kids to get the winning goal? Like, it's stupid. And as a former player, I'd have been really intimidated. Like, Connor is that good. It gets dwindled just a little bit in the playoffs because we go back to the way it used to be, where if you really can't stop them, you can't jump on their back like you used to be able to. But, you can take more liberties. And that's probably the only saving grace for slowing him down. But the end result, because people must be listening to this and say, well, I just don't understand why they don't win every year then. And that is because we're not basketball. Connor McDavid is not playing, in some cases, 100% of the game like guys do in basketball. And he certainly doesn't have the puck the way somebody gets it in basketball, which is every time there's a point scored, it transitions back. So it's not the same. Hockey is a more fluid sport. You need more than, in Edmonton's case, 3 superstars to win the cup.
As the Pacific tries to sort itself out, what is your angle on the Atlantic Division? Is it Tampa? Is it Buffalo that's enjoying the best moment in 15 years, or Detroit?
Buffalo is clearly enjoying the best moment in 15 years. But last time I checked, I don't think they're in first place by the win percentage. But I love that was being proliferated last night through that game, because I don't want it to sound negative to Buffalo, because I think they have a really good team. But to be a great team, you got to do what Tampa's kind of done. That game last night was incredible. I mean, think about it. Tampa's down 3-0, and then they're up 5-4, then they're up 7-5, then Buffalo comes back and wins in regulation. And I mean, it was crazy to me, that game. And you got to compliment Buffalo. They have assembled an incredible group of players, and it's been super fun to watch. It's like, they fire a GM, a new guy comes in. They'd started to play better, to be fair. It maybe felt like a little, too late for ownership. They make a change, and it's like the group got together and said, come on, fellas, look at the players we have on this team. And a lot of them we don't even know. We haven't even heard a fraction of what they're all about. A guy like Josh Doan, all the talk of, maybe they trade Alex Tuck. they have a tremendous cast of players. The whole Colton Parayko thing, I wouldn't worry about that if I were Buffalo one bit. Go out and make the playoffs, which you're going to do, and do some damage. Because people used to say this about Edmonton to some degree. Oh, players don't want to play. It's not true. If you run your organization the right way, it doesn't matter where you're located in this league. Players, one of their number one priorities, and I can say this with confidence, having represented hundreds of players in the NHL, and that is that they love to go where they can win. There's nothing better. It's not palm trees. It's not tax-free. It's winning. And that's why the Detroit Red Wings, if anybody remembers, I remember seeing Chelly. Sergei Fedorov was a client at the time. They were in Anaheim. I think they'd won the first game of the playoffs, and we were going to go have a bite to eat and a drink after the game. And I thought I was traveling with the Beatles. These guys were rock stars, and the players loved it. Don't sleep on that part of the equation. Buffalo needs to take that next step, and then nobody will ever be talking about a player, didn't want to go to Buffalo, which is really a jilted way to look at it. It's a player that just maybe didn't want to move and had the ability to stop that with a no-trade clause. That's all it is.
So as a former agent, former player, where are we with no move clauses, no trade clauses? Are there too many now? Are we going to see it?
Yeah, we're in a bad place, John. I'll be honest with you. You can go through teams. No trade clauses typically were reserved for the elite. And I'm not saying no trade. No move clauses. Let's start there. No trades, I'm fine with. But when you go to a no move, and you can't even waive a player without their permission, it's really restrictive. I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that as long as it doesn't end up being, 4, 5. There's teams with 6 players that have a no move clause. Like, you're getting so deep that and management is doing it to themselves. You always have a choice. Examples might be like Arvidsson, the protection he had, Henrique, if you go back to Edmonton. Like, those guys are good players, and they deserve no trade clauses. But when you get into no movement clauses for guys of that ilk, that is so damaging to managing your club. You just can't do it. And having been an agent, I can tell you, even though agents will kick and scream that they must have it or they'll go somewhere else, you need to tell them to go somewhere else. It's that restrictive for a club. And I know that's incredibly difficult because, you're always trying to improve your team and everybody says, who cares? It's like Toronto and having a top 5 protected pick. Oh, who cares? We're a good team. Well, that's outside the standard of what we've really seen. That was typically top 10. I think Toronto's like 9th right now and would pick like 9th. It just, that's not a league problem. That's a GM problem. And if you ask GMs, I think they would tell you that. That's up to them to monitor that. Players have rights. They're doing a good job of asserting them. But you have to be very, very careful with no-move clauses. I think that's hurt the ability for clubs to make them.
So how did we get here? I mean, that's such an obvious question, but did managers use this as collateral for currency?
Managers are using it to close deals. And when you get that far and you're negotiating a deal and you're down to the no-move protection, your player has decided that he would go there. It's not hinging on that last piece. I don't care what anybody says. It isn't. I've been there. I've been on both sides. It's not. You need to just say, look, you got to have something. I'll give you something, but it won't prevent me from being able to manage the team. It won't prevent me from being able to trade you. It may prevent me from trading you somewhere that you articulated you wouldn't go in a no trade list, but it won't be so your first duty is to the organization. So you have to make a really tough choice. Is it best for the organization if we sign this player or don't sign this player? And you have to do what is so paramount when you're managing, especially when you're signing a guy. This is going to be great. We're going to play great. We're going to just move forward. Everything's going to work out. All right, let's do it. Boom, you do it. You need to slow down, and you need to say, okay, let's look at the other side of this before we do it. What happens if we have some injuries? What happens if the player doesn't play well? What are our outlets to reduce our risk here? If you don't do that, it's almost malfeasance. It really is in your job. You need to, and sometimes you can do that and the public will never know because you went to the owner and you said, look, this is what they're saying. I'm holding on it. They're saying they'll go somewhere else if I don't sign this player. But you know what? If we sign this guy and he doesn't work out and we can't move him, it's a real problem for us. And you throw it at the owner and say, how do you feel about that? That's just the way to do it. You have to look at both sides of the equation. It's never talked about. It's the biggest missed thing, in my opinion, for clubs right now managing their teams. Because at the end of the day, no player could force a club to sign them to a no-move clause. They just can't. It's still a choice. It's a choice, but it's not a league issue either. Oh, the league needs to step in and say you can only have a certain... That's not the league's job. And I don't think the league wants to be involved at that level. What makes organizations different from one to another is the quality of their management. I don't think we want this to be turned into like an AI-driven deal where everybody's just equal. You know,
what's the monetary value of a no move for a player?
I've never seen anybody quantify it. It's about restrictiveness. So you have to literally sit down and how penal is it? In a tight salary cap world, I could tell you, looking at some teams that were stuck with it with certain players, that they just had no options unless the player gives them permission, pretty penal. Ask the St. Louis Blues. Was it
sure? Because Parayko's not the first.
And it's not. Colton Parayko's a great guy, and that's a really strong case actually for the players because he's so well respected. There's not a guy on St. Louis, first of all, that didn't say, "Thank God, are we happy you stayed?" Right? And we got your back. Because he's a super popular, straight shooter, honest player, not only liked by his teammates, but really liked about everybody throughout the league, which is unusual for a defensive defenseman. They used to have to be Paul Baxter, who might kick you if you fell on the ground. But that's not Colton Parayko. He just plays the game hard, and he's very well respected. So... But those are things like, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, would Colton Parayko have not re-signed in St. Louis if he didn't have that protection? And you'd have to ask, the Blues management on that. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe he took that firm a line. I find that hard to believe with his personality and his love for the Blues and playing there, but who knows? So that's all it is. That's just something the managers I'm sure they'll get together and, it's hard because even though the managers do actually get together and talk about league issues, there's managers that are just okay with it. If you want to do that, go for it. But I'm not going to do it. And vice versa.
Would you have a limit on no movement clauses on your team?
If I ever had a limit, I wouldn't tell anybody what it was. I'll be honest with you. You want to be transparent in today's world with your fan base, what you're doing, but you don't want to be stupid either, right?
But I tell you what, if I were in the next CBA negotiations, if I'm the commissioner, I would throw that on the table, knowing full well that I'm going to have to give something up.
I don't think it's the responsibility of the commissioner to do that. I really don't.
But I would argue, Brian, that you're right. And it's not the responsibility of the commissioner to have a salary cap and enforce a salary cap. It's in the same realm.
That's different. There's empirical evidence. Don't just look at baseball. Do you know that the Minnesota Wild were valued more than the Minnesota Twins? And baseball has a lot more revenue. Do you want to know why? It's very clear. It's because hockey has a salary cap, and it has risen the value of all franchise, and hockey's exploded. And I've been a player, I've been an agent, I've been a GM. I'm just citing facts now. I'm not taking a side one way or the other on it, but that's a fact. The Minnesota Twins tried to sell and were valued less than the Minnesota Wild. And good for Craig Leopold. But at the end of the day, I attribute that, and I've spoken to some of the people that were potential buyers of the Twins, and the number one issue they raised is we don't have a salary cap in baseball. So now,
I think there are 8 teams in the NHL now with higher value than Major League Baseball teams.
Right? Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Where do you see the cap going up?
It's not the commissioner's job, though, to do things like that. It's not the commissioner's job to run every team for everyone. He's the macro person that's overseeing, the rise of franchise values, because he does report to the owners. Obviously, they work for him, technically.
Well, that's a whole other podcast, Brian.
I'm joking. Gary works, obviously, for the owners. But part of his purview is to oversee where this league is going, to increase the partnerships, the revenue of the league, not make individual decisions on teams.
But they have had to, though. They've had to. I mean, the amount.
In which way? Tell me an individual decision the commissioner makes for a team.
Well, I think even just
that's not macro.
The enforcement of the cap. I think alone.
Sure. Yes.
I mean, the amount of reporting, and you know this, Brian, the amount of reporting teams have to do to the New York office, to the CFO, of how they're spending their money, that exists, Brian. That's there. He has become, and I say this with a tremendous amount of respect. He's become Big Brother. In so many ways, the league office has become Big Brother to say, please, not even please, but this is the framework we expect you to work under.
I would say that, and very confidently, I might add, having run a team, that teams are free to make whatever decisions they want. The league's goal when they're doing things like that is to try to promote best practices. It's exactly what the NHLPA said. A rising tide raises all ships. And that has clearly happened in the NHL in terms of values. The NHL did an incredibly smart thing, in my opinion. Because I used to talk about this openly, is that as a league, we weren't sharing enough revenues to rise the tide and raise all ships. Mm-hmm. That has changed. It was a low of about 4% when the salary cap came in. It is significantly higher now. As revenues have grown on the national stage, teams have grown significantly. There were teams like the Arizona Coyotes that were losing real money in a significant way, and it was a drag on the overall value of all National Hockey League teams, even the top tier. And I remember guys yelling at me in Tampa that they really had to equalize us to some degree, and some other teams that weren't doing great financially, particularly in that 08 through 11 time frame. Mm-hmm. The league has corrected that. They've learned, and they've been aggressive. And I mean, let's face it, guys, valuations have exploded. They're not just up, they've exploded for the NHL. The NHL has, in my opinion, has grown more than the other leagues, certainly in this last push that they've made to raise those, to really raise the revenue sharing level in the league. And it's been nothing but a good thing. But the commissioner actually having to run each individual team, that is not his mandate. And I don't think he's done that at all. I think he's focused on what you want a commissioner of a league to do, which is to raise the overall level. And that's exactly
I'm not suggesting he's running teams. I'm suggesting he's got a paint by numbers situation. He just tells people not to paint outside the numbers.
There's definitely been things that he's put in place, that all the rules we have to play by, but everybody has the free choice
Sure.
To decide to give a no-move clause or not give a no-move clause, to decide to re-sign their players or not re-sign their players. They just have to, there's a lot of analysis that has to go into it, and a tremendous amount now as the revenues continue to explode. Therefore, the salary cap is going to go up so significantly that the choices really matter.
Okay, we're knocking on the door of $100 million salary cap. Where do you see it going? Does it go up to 110? Does it 120? Like in the near future?
In the much more near future than people would believe, I see it going, let me be precise with this, north of 125 million. So think a 3 to 4 year time span. I think
that blows my mind.
Your pal Alan Walsh, unsolicited yesterday, tweeted out, and I'll read it, analyzing NHL HRR projections and the current revenue slack that exists in the system. Hearing the NHL is projecting the salary cap upper limit at $123 million for 28-29.
Okay.
It's $30 million growth in 3 years.
That blows me away.
Having worked with Alan, I always cut everything in half and subtract 20%. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm going to get a phone call for Alan for that.
Yeah, so
but I'm joking, Alan. I'm joking. I actually think he's more right than people would believe. It has to do with things that aren't talked about. And I'm not going to talk about any of them on this show. But I feel like there's a little more growth there if you really dive deep into the salary cap, which every team should be doing. And they should see what I see. And they should understand that that statement is most likely to come true.
Sounds like a great time to expand then.
What's that?
Sounds like a great time to expand.
My honest opinion would be we're closer to ever than expansion. Again,
where would you put a team?
We've talked about it. We've heard talk about it. We've heard talk about the NHL has never said that they would expand. They've never said how much they would expand for, but there's clues in the marketplace.
Well, Gary has said it's going to cost you $2 billion.
Yes, he's just said we'd listen at $2 billion. He didn't say we'd expand at $2 billion.
That's
and
right.
I would say that when Gary said that, it probably sounded outlandish. He'll be 100% right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the time, people kind of balked and said, oh my gosh, I don't really? Well, guess what? I think we're way closer to validation on those comments for Gary and the National Hockey.
Where's the first place you would put a team?
I don't think there's anywhere obvious. You guys know that I always think I'm not a contrarian, but I try not to run my thoughts by what people are saying. So my ideal customer profile, my ICP for a new team would be a massively growing city. Still don't hate no state, states, right? No state tax states. Like I'm trying to build out the profile in my mind. And I would say that those places have the edge. So what would fit that mold? And I have not talked to anybody at the league, so this has nothing to do with them. You're asking me a question, I'm giving you my opinion. My opinion would be somewhere in Texas.
And by the way, Austin, Texas is a growing city.
Well, that's what an ICP is, John.
Yes, I know. I'm well aware. Here's what I can tell you is I think interest in Houston has fallen off. Because Mr. Fertitta
I have no knowledge.
But Mr. Fertitta wants to buy a soccer team in England right now, because that seems to be the toy of billionaires now, is going to the Premiership, right? And then
I've worked with people that own those teams. We represent in our tech company some of those businesses, and I can tell you they're great businesses. Completely different model. but
Right.
great businesses over there. They truly are.
But everybody's going to laugh. Atlanta and Phoenix are high on the list.
Phoenix would be a great spot. Atlanta, I don't feel as warm and fuzzy about, but only because they've been there and it didn't work. And that's always just a red flag. Doesn't mean it wouldn't work now. The league has, like I said, they've given us hints. They'd like to see somebody really, if they're going to sell more expansion franchises, which are massive wins for the league, right? Why are they massive wins for the league? Because players don't participate in any of those dollars.
Right.
Right. It's really the only carve out. Not the only one, but the biggest one. So if they're going to do that, though, they're going to want to make sure all the information they have about the people that have been successful, they're going to make sure every box has been checked. And one of those is a state-of-the-art arena.
Yeah.
So now if you have to buy a team for $2 billion, you have to build a state-of-the-art arena. The investment is so massive that as a league, it wouldn't be hard. I'm not involved with the league, but it wouldn't be hard to conclude that makes their bet a lot stronger.
Yeah.
And that's why I won't say no in Atlanta. Yeah, I'm just saying in the analysis, there's a box to check. I don't like it.
And beyond the franchise fee, beyond the arena, the infrastructure in building an organization might be another $1 billion, right? So we're talking perhaps close to $4 billion to launch an NHL team.
I don't think it's that much to build the infrastructure. Not another $1 billion. You can get it done for much cheaper than that. And I will tell you that although today is not a particularly strong day to talk about input costs for buildings, I think the cost of buildings has gone way out of control. And that you find out that a lot of these companies building buildings have a ridiculously high return.
Profit margin. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey,
Yes.
So here's one question. Why would I spend $2 billion for an expansion team when I can get the Pittsburgh Penguins for 1.8, including a building?
Yeah. I think that Vegas and Seattle made that really clear. How's it going in Vegas, Daren?
It's going pretty good, Brian. Not a lot of complaints over here.
It's public knowledge, I think, that Vegas has raised some money or sold some minority interest.
As Tom Dundon has, you mean?
As Tom Dundon, that's public knowledge also.
Yeah.
So I would say Vegas, depending on the amount of money they raised, has, already received all of their initial investment back. I don't know that to be a fact. That's just what I believe is true from what I've seen in reporting. Tom Dundon, on the other hand, for the amount he sold, it's probably pretty close to what he invested in the franchise. It's always great to have an investment that makes money. You've returned all your initial investment, and it can go on forever.
Inside of 10 years.
Yes. These are really strong markers for the National Hockey League to point to. You never hear him talking about it, and I don't think you ever will, but I don't think it's that hard to put together the picture and say, this is what's happening. You always have to confirm that stuff, and it can be hard to confirm, to be totally transparent, but I certainly believe what's reported on Carolina is true. I believe Bill Foley may have taken some chips off the table. I think Seattle's value is through the roof as well. You ask why these new cities, because you have the last two examples have blown the lights out. Like the NHL has 100% footing to stand on and just say, look, all we have are the facts. Here's our last two teams. If you're really serious, I don't know, these guys, give them a call. Maybe they'll talk to you about their experience. I can't imagine that Bill Foley wouldn't be 1,000%, enthusiastic about his experience in Vegas because he's hit a grand slam. And Seattle, although they haven't had the winning like Vegas has in terms of a Stanley Cup, they're younger. but their franchise has done terrific and is super valuable. I know a lot of people. I know a number of minority investors there, and generally with a minority investment, you don't necessarily get everything you want, but in terms of the value of how Seattle has performed, I'd say they're exceptionally happy with the performance.
What are you up to? What's keeping you busy these days?
I have many things going on. Some of them I can talk about and some of them I can't. But in all honesty, for someone who technically, doesn't have a job, although I do have a job, there's just some things I can't talk about, but things are going quite well. I don't have any complaints. I'm enjoying watching the National Hockey League as much as ever. I really enjoyed when I worked at NHL Network, but I'm happy to have a little bit more free time to focus on some other things that have been very, very enjoyable.
And lucrative?
Pardon?
And lucrative?
Well, nothing's. Come on now. This is Brian Lawton.
Yes, and lucrative.
Good.
Okay.
Well, my favorite part is
working for a club, Daren. I really, truly do, because there's nothing to replace. Money doesn't replace doing things that you're passionate about. That's the big negative for me.
You still have that player's mentality. You like winning, right?
I love winning. It's a players, it's a GMs, it's most everybody in hockey mentality. It's people wouldn't know this about me. When I was younger, I played tennis. Might have been equally talented as tennis as hockey, but at the end of the day, it's the people and the camaraderie. I chose hockey in the end because it was a team sport. And that's what I love in life. I love working with people. I love having successes. I don't mind. A good friend of mine, an old partner at Octagon, who's still there. When I started Octagon, Mike Liu was the first hire. Mike had a big birthday recently, so all of Octagon will be screaming at me after this podcast. And his daughter reached out to me and she said, "What can you say about my father?" I said, "Anytime, anywhere, any conflict on the planet, I want that guy in the foxhole with me." And those are the things that jazz me up the most, to be honest with you. It's just having good people that are willing to go the distance to fight for things. It could be anything. Mike's a brilliant guy. People, Mike was this great goaltender. People don't know he started college when he was 17. He graduated when he was 21. He's a runner-up for MVP. That's an incredible accomplishment to just go to college and do all that, and then to become a great player, and then to go on and get his law degree. A lot of people don't know Mike Liu's a lawyer also, and then to be, Mike runs Octagon now. Like, those are massive accomplishments. And for me in my life, I want to be around people like that are high achievers. And that really, like I said, jazzes me up. So doing things as a group, there's no real enjoyment for me in doing solo things. If I do something and make some money on it, it's good. Make some money, you'd love that. But there's more enjoyment in doing things with a group. And a hockey team is the ultimate of that. It's John may not love this, but it's a big deal that the U.S. won the gold medal. We can debate whether or not in both sports.
It is a big deal. It is a big
deal. It's a massive deal in the United States of America. Jack Hughes, he's been an incredible spokesperson for that. But what that team accomplished together is such a massive deal. I've talked to a number of the management team, and they couldn't be more thrilled just to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Just to be a part of it. Yeah. It's, Canada could have won. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Maybe we don't have, 3-on-3. It doesn't matter. They still won. That's an incredible deal. Those guys will take that with them to their grave. Every person that was involved in it, from Billy Daren to players that didn't play that much. It's not just a Canadian thing. It's a really big deal for Americans.
And that part, you have to know that it's going to help the game of hockey, period. It's going to help the game of hockey. Yeah.
Enormously. The NHL pays a really high price to be involved. They got a really massive return for making that decision.
And it'll help Canada too, because the interest going forward to get back on top will motivate that side of the border as well. And it will. Like the interest in 2028 and the World Cup is going to be significant because Canada will be chasing and the Americans will be on top. World Championship, Olympics, women's hockey, all of it.
Well, as Eddie Olczyk said, it's only a rivalry if both sides win.
Yeah.
And up until 2 weeks ago, one side was winning.
For 46 years.
For 46 years.
I like the rivalry between Lawton and Shannon. I appreciate Lawton slapping Shannon's hand there.
John and I are collaborating.
These are good, healthy discussions that Brian and I have had many times, whether it be in the green room or on the phone for hours on end.
Well, John, we have to get my son's name out there, Jack Lawton, because he's a big fan, and he has tried to collaborate with John for you guys to continue to strive to be the best you can be, and I love that.
And some of Jack's thoughts I hadn't even considered. I read the correspondence back and forth, and it's made a difference in the impact. Jack's the man.
It's good to have young people who think differently, that are educated differently. Jack was trained at Apple, which most people wouldn't know. He works in the tech company that my wife runs here called Sports Digita. He is essentially a senior person, which would be unthinkable a number of years ago. But just the way these young people embrace AI are in touch with the markets and how they work and flow. I have another son, Nick Lawton, that's a founder of a company that is doing incredible called SideShift. It's great to see. For my wife and I as parents, we love to see that. We have another child, Gabby, that's over in Barcelona studying this year, but goes to Michigan. And we look forward to see what she could do. But John and I have collaborated, are good friends. We've been good friends for a long time. He asked me some honest questions. I suggested something, and I commend you guys for just trying to do the best you can do. You're just like every team in the National Hockey League. How can we be better?
And got to do it every day. The good news is that with AI, I might get a new co-host.
So. You can replace Millard for a lot cheaper. Yes, that'll never happen. It's the personality as to why it's been so great. That's clear.
I'm looking forward to the similar salary cap on this podcast as the National Hockey League.
Well, I do commend you guys for taking that step seriously. And the one thing that I did not know, because we've been friends, and I'll do different podcasts for people I'm friends with. I didn't realize how great you're already doing. I really didn't. And that's my own ignorance. But my son, Jack, really lit me up on that. He loved your show. And he was super honored to try to just give you guys some thoughts. But that's the honest to God truth, what he said. There's a lot of noise out there. Yeah.
We're getting there.
Well, you're doing incredible. Keep it up.
Thanks, buddy. Be well. Enjoy the stretch drive, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Fantastic, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Love hanging out with Brian Lawton. Back with more to wrap it up with John Shannon and Daren Millard on 100% Hockey, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
That's what Jack told you to say, right?
He did.
With the NHL app, you can listen to every NHL game right from your phone. And with home and away broadcast feeds, you choose your way to listen.
And he scores!
Whether you're at work, at the gym, or stuck in traffic, the NHL app puts you right in the action all season long. Every team, every game, everywhere you go. Download the NHL app and never miss a moment.
Next time we'll have to have Jack and Brian on.
Yeah, and then we're going to tell the people that are on YouTube to close their eyes, because I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference. They sound the same.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was very kind of Brian because you know, in this business you're trying to stake a claim and, you know, make a difference and get people to listen. That's the thing, because I'm in many ways I think what we're doing with the podcast, Daren, is comparable to what the NHL is doing, because I truly believe once you watch a hockey game live, you're hooked for life. You're hooked. That's how good it is, and I think that I feel confident in saying that with our podcast. If you and I are having fun and we get great guests, and we've been able to get great guests, then people will come back. And the challenge is to get people to find us. And we don't have a marketing department. We don't have billions of dollars to invest. As I told somebody else, we don't have any money from a TV network, or we don't have the guys from the gum company helping us. You know, that's where you say the gum company. Yeah, Chiclets.
What's the gum company?
Chiclets.
Oh.
We don't have Chiclets.
I had no idea what the gum company was, so I was just going to go.
Yeah,
go with it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think people once they find us, they have fun. So
going forward this week, you know, one thing that I'm keeping an eye on closely is this race for the points lead in the National Hockey League. Like it's not just a one guy thing or a two guy competition. Kucherov is involved in this thing too.
I guess, and this is the difference between the East and the West. We hear a lot more about Nikita Kucherov in the East than you would.
Just that he's coming now. He's a point back of McKinnon,
right,
and within reach of McDavid.
Somebody said yesterday to me that they could easily see Kucherov winning the Hart Trophy.
I love that guy, and I love that he gets pissed off as much as he gets happy on the ice.
Yeah, all three of those guys get pissed off.
Yeah,
that's what makes them great. You can't tell me that Connor McDavid wasn't miffed at some point last night. You knew he was, and you could see it in the third period. Nathan McKinnon, who will forget the scene in Milan looking at his stuffy? Who will forget? That's gonna haunt him for the rest of his life. I mean, we're gonna bring that video back in 4 years. Here's a stuffy for Nathan. You know, I mean, those three guys, with their great ability, with their ability to execute, do it with such passion, that makes it fun. Makes it fun to watch all three of them.
So do you like the fact that a top team is so bullish physically, like Tampa Bay is, whether it's against the Florida Panthers or whether it's against the Buffalo Sabres or whoever wants to get in their face?
I think you have to be. I think you have to be. I think that's – and
not everybody is, though.
Well, no, and you know, that we talked about it with Brian. One of the best teams in the game has never been that way, and they have never won the Stanley Cup. You think that's a coincidence in the Carolina Hurricanes? Do you think that it's not? I mean, I think that they have never been tough enough. And I am not an advocate for, you know, bench clearing brawls, although we don't see them anymore, or stage fights or fights at all. Really, I'm not a big guy, but aggressive play is part of the game. And sometimes in aggressive play, with the emotion of the game, you cross the line. I think I'm always surprised at times that it's Cooper and Cooper's team that does it, but John Cooper's a smart guy. Mm-hmm. He understands what it takes to win, and they're proving to people what it takes to win. And by the way, if you're playing them and then you don't push back, you're done.
Right.
You're done. You know, and so that's part and parcel of, I think, what we're starting to watch. Here we are in March, and we're going to see it starting on the 18th of April. I think that's what playoff hockey's all about. Enjoy it,
and take the advice of one Brian Lawton and get on the hockey 100% hockey bandwagon. Come on.
Yeah, but if they're listening to this, they're already on the bandwagon. Tell a friend.
Okay, tell friends.
Give it a thumbs up.
Hope you enjoyed it on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcast. Mine is right now iHeart. I think you're still on Spotify, but get on and get that.
I was on Apple yesterday. So.
Oh, were you? Just trying to spread out the plays.
Well, if I subscribe to all of them, our subscription list grows. So.
Good way to put it. We'll talk to you next time. 100% Hockey with Millard and Shannon.